Welcome into OutKick the Show, Friday edition, rolling right into Labor Day. I appreciate all of you hanging out with us as we are finishing up the month at OutKick. August on track to be the best month potentially in the history of OutKick for August, which is, what is the year now? 2024, 13-year history of the site. Absolutely dominant month across the web and video clips and everything else. So we appreciate all of you and all the support that you have shown us. It is the eve of college football Week 1 Saturday. I've got a lot of gambling picks for you. I'm going to react to Colorado. What do we think about their win over North Dakota State last night? I was watching simultaneously the Colorado-North Dakota State game, and also I flipped over to Western Carolina against NC State, which ended up somewhat close, and the Kamala Harris interview alongside of Tim Walz on CNN with Dana Bash. I'll react to all of that. Brittany Mahomes with good life advice. I will discuss all of that and more. But right off the top, another good win on Prize Picks. I told you that I loved Shedeur Sanders, who I'm going to talk about in a moment, to go for over 304.5 yards in our Prize Picks pick of the week. And he went over 400 yards. Nearly had the total passing yards in the first half. Given the fact that we've got the automatic win, thanks to Prize Picks, Jalen Milroe over a half yard, that means if you took our picks, in order to win 10-1, all you need is for Carson Beck to go less than 262.5 and for Garrett Nussmeier of LSU to go more than 279.5. We are halfway, fingers crossed, halfway to a 10-1 payout, which would follow up with last week's Prize Picks win and start us off with a boom in the college football marketplace. So we will discuss that on Tuesday. I'm going to be on the road. I'm going to be all over the country, literally east to west coast next week. We're going to do on Tuesday the normal OutKick show. I'll react to everything that happened in college football week 1. And then we're going to do an early in the week, The Fade, with Kelly Stewart, Kelly in Vegas. So I'll have 2 shows for you on Tuesday. Then I'm going to do a show Wednesday, then fly all the way across the country. So no shows on Thursday or Friday. I'm just letting you know I'll be live with Clay and Buck Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'm taking off Monday and taking my kids on a canoe trip, which should be pretty cool. So I can't wait for that. So I'll be out on Monday, on Labor Day. I'll be with my family this weekend, as many of you will be. I hope that all of you stay safe on your travels and have fun with your friends and family wherever you may be across the country. Okay, let's talk about what we saw last night from Colorado. I didn't see anything new. You've got 2 incredibly elite players, in my opinion. Shedeur Sanders, who's going to throw for gobs and gobs of yards, and Travis Hunter. Stat on Travis Hunter, who is playing defensive back and wide receiver. He played 100, this is what I saw, 129 snaps last night. He was only off the field for 2 offensive or defensive plays all night, and he dominated on both sides of the ball. I'm actually not sure. Probably at corner, because generally it's harder to find great corners than it is great receivers. I'm not sure which way he's going to play now when he gets to the NFL. And there may be a package put in for him where he can play wide receiver. I mean, if you look at what Brandon Ayuk got, wide receivers now are making over $30 million a year. There may be more money to make as a wide receiver than there is as a corner, which reflects the overall enduring value of wide receivers in the last few years. But the big takeaway here is I don't think that Colorado is a much different team than they were last year. I thought North Dakota State played well. They got lucky on a kickball interception in the end zone, but they were also a bit unlucky with some of the things that they set up, like they had a great play call late in the game for a first down and didn't get the snap off in time. I thought that Travis Hunter got away with a couple of pushes on several of his big plays, and that wasn't called very aggressively. North Dakota State, very good football team. The fact that Colorado made the decisions they did down the stretch to even allow North Dakota State the opportunity to potentially win that game, I think is a bad sign for Colorado going forward. Thought they still looked weak on the offensive and defensive lines in general, despite all the transfers that they got, in particular going for it in the first half from the 35 out of the shotgun. I hate that play call. I don't know why guys run it so many times. Got snuffed on third down and fourth down. Colorado did. ESPN. I like Deion Sanders. Let me say this. I've enjoyed watching him play. I was talking about it yesterday. I think Shedeur Sanders, very good player. Shiloh Sanders plays on the edge. Got a personal foul, had a couple of other hits that could have been personal fouls, I thought. But I don't begrudge a player who plays on the edge. Deion seems to be a very good dad to me. His kids seem to really like him. I think that matters as a dad. But ESPN's got to do something about Mark Jones. The slobbering from Mark Jones inside of the press box for Deion Sanders is uncomfortable. And if I'm a North Dakota State fan or a fan of any team that is playing against Colorado, it's like you're listening to the hometown radio announce team as opposed to a national broadcast team. Now, look, I don't have a great deal of at this point for Mark Jones. I think he used to be a pretty talented guy. I think that social media and the emotional aspect of it broke him. This is a guy who said he would no longer accept police escorts after the George Floyd situation because he said he was afraid the police would kill him. This is not a stable man, and I think social media has broken him, and in some way he has decided that he has to be basically a crazy partisan calling Deion Sanders games. I think it's probably race-related. I think it's embarrassing for ESPN that they still employ that guy, and they fired a lot of other more talented, more respected people in the world of sports media. They got to take him off Colorado games. I know they keep demoting him and keep giving him less important games, but I have not heard a national announcer slobber over one team like that, maybe in my life. And I'm sure ESPN executives were watching it. I don't see how that wasn't embarrassing to them. If I'm a North Dakota State fan, I'm like, dude, I'm just trying to watch the game. I don't need to hear you telling me that Deion Sanders is the greatest coach that's ever lived. Even Deion Sanders, I think, would be embarrassed by the lack of gag reflex from Mark Jones when it comes to how he calls Deion games. Again, I'm a Deion fan. I like Deion. I like the fact that he's spoken out. I don't have any issue with him not wanting to talk to media members. As I said earlier this week, and we need to clip and share that, the fact that Deion Sanders is being criticized more for how he responds to media as a college football coach than Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are as president and vice presidential contenders is wild to me. The sports media is angrier at Deion Sanders over his behavior on interviews and his press conferences than they are with the fact that Kamala and Walz won't talk to anyone, which I think is funny. So I'm on Deion's side here. I don't know why he needs to talk to anybody that he doesn't need to talk to, doesn't want to talk to. He's going to be judged by wins and losses on the field. But the slobbering, the anti-gag reflex behavior of Mark Jones is frankly unacceptable, unbecoming, and embarrassing for ESPN, and they should not allow him to call any more Deion games based on how he behaved last night. Actually took away from my enjoyment of the behavior of Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. Again, I think Deion's team's likely to go 5-7 or 6-6. I think that's probably their ceiling. And then we'll see what happens because Travis Hunter and Shedeur are probably both going to be first-round draft picks or close to it. Maybe people decide they don't like Shedeur over the course of the season, and we'll see how many quarterbacks are taken in the first round in this upcoming season. That obviously factors in when you look at the draft next season. But I think Shedeur Sanders looks improved, bigger, stronger. Problem is, I don't think the offensive and defensive lines are much improved, and I'm not sure how or whether Deion is building for the long term. I didn't see the run game. Did not think it was very impressive from Colorado. There's a lot of talk in the offseason about how they needed to have more of a two-dimensional offense. I didn't see that. Let me pull up the actual numbers. It didn't seem to me that when Colorado needed to run the football, again, that they were able to do so. They didn't seem great in third down and short yardage plays. And they threw for a massive amount with Shedeur Sanders, but they did not feel to me like a team that is going to be a big threat running the football. They carried the ball. Colorado did. This is the story of the game to me. 23 times for 59 yards. And 17 of those yards came from Shedeur Sanders basically scrambling and trying to make plays. Dalen Hayden, who transferred from Ohio State, 9 carries, 20 yards. Charlie Offerdahl, 5 carries, 15 yards. There was nothing there. I like to go when I look at a box score to make sure that I'm seeing, hey, who won the line of scrimmage? North Dakota State owned the line of scrimmage against Colorado. They didn't do great, 43 carries for 157 yards. But they were able to move the ball better on the ground than Colorado was. That is not a very good endorsement of Colorado going forward. And when you look at the Colorado schedule, and I know a lot of people focus on Colorado, I don't think they'll have anywhere near the same amount of focus this year after the way they finished. But I think Colorado, if I were predicting right now, I think Colorado will lose at Nebraska. I think there's a decent chance they lose at Colorado State, although they'll be favored in that game. Baylor, I think Colorado could beat. Aranda doesn't have things rolling very well at Baylor right now. At UCF, I would take Central Florida. Kansas State at Colorado, I would take Kansas State. Colorado at Arizona, new coach at Arizona, but I would take Arizona there. Cincinnati at Colorado, probably a toss-up game there. Colorado at Texas Tech, Texas Tech. Utah at Colorado, Utah. Colorado at Kansas, I would take Kansas. Oklahoma State at Colorado, I would take Oklahoma State. What is that, 4-8, roughly? In my prediction, I said I think best case scenario, they get to a bowl game at 6-6. I didn't see anything that made me want to change my mind after that performance from Colorado. Picks. I told you we did a big breakdown. I'd encourage you to go check out the fade. My picks have been up. I'll try to get the picks up by Wednesday every week. It's going to be a crazy fall, as you can imagine, with all the moving parts. I'm on Clemson, plus the points against Georgia. Dabo's team, a lot to prove, still talented, even though they haven't worked the transfer portal like others have. I think that Georgia is going to miss Carson Beck in particular, is going to miss Brock Bowers. They're not going to be the same seamless offense that they were with a huge security blanket from him. I like Penn State to win and cover against West Virginia in what will be the first Big Noon game. Encourage you to check out Big Noon on Fox. Penn State minus 8.5 and the over. Virginia Tech at Vandy. Clark Lee on the hot seat. I like Vanderbilt plus the nearly 2 touchdowns and the under. My theory there that Clark Lee is a defensive coordinator coach, given that he's on the hot seat. When that happens, a lot of head coaches go back to what they do best. I think he will. Chattanooga, Tennessee. I think the Tennessee defensive line is going to be stout. They're going to be rotating through double-digit players. I don't think Chattanooga has offensive horses. I think they may well score 10 or less, and I think Tennessee will name their score even with backups in. Florida, I like the Gators to get the win as the home underdog against Miami. Don't believe that Miami has been disciplined enough, breaking in a new quarterback there. Billy Napier's final 7 games are brutal. I'm not sure he survives the season as the Gators coach, but I do like Florida to pull off a home upset in week 1. Colorado State plus the points. Texas has to go on the road next week for a monster game at Michigan. Biggest game of the week. Big Noon will be there. Carry that at 12 Eastern. I like Colorado State plus the points to cover against Texas. Money has been coming in on them. Huge dollars coming in. Huge underdog, but dollars coming in on Colorado State. I like Old Dominion plus the points on the road against South Carolina. I think the Gamecocks are going to struggle this year with a new quarterback. Western Kentucky at Bama. I like for Kalen DeBoer to come out. Usually you don't worry about these games too much. I think Bama puts up a big number against Western Kentucky. Notre Dame A&M. I've been tapping the vein for some time. I love Texas A&M to cover the 2.5 and the under 46.5. Mike Elko, new head coach down in Aggieland. Night game. Great defensive mind. Riley Leonard, who knows him better than Mike Elko? No one. He was the coach of Riley Leonard last year at Duke. Riley Leonard has transferred from Duke to Notre Dame. Duke was able to shut down what Notre Dame wanted to do last year in Durham for much of that game. I think that the athletes and the talent Jimbo Fisher recruited at Texas A&M will be able to handle the Notre Dame players and their skill position guys. And I think A&M will win this game by 7 or more. The under will hit. Southern Miss at Kentucky, another new quarterback coming in for Kentucky. I don't like this offense being put in a new system. Kentucky is a defense-first coach with Mark Stoops. I think 4 touchdowns is far too many. And then I like LSU minus the 4.5 against Southern Cal and the over. These are all the numbers, just so you know that I'm reading off of my sheet when I did my picks. So these are all the numbers that I gave out on Monday. We went 2-1 last week. Like I said, we got the win with Shedeur Sanders going for more passing yards than he was forecast for. So a good start for week 1 going forward there. Okay. I want to react to the CNN interview of Tim Walz and Kamala Harris. I thought it was awkward, strange, weird, to use a word. Tim Walz, why was he there? Awkwardly, lifeguard style, sitting beside Kamala Harris. It looked like a Labor Day pool or a Labor Day beach, as many of you may find yourselves at. Those locations. I hope your lifeguards do a better job than Tim Walz did, because he helped Kamala Harris drown. In particular, I thought Kamala Harris on fracking, she's been lying. On the border wall, she's been lying. On electric vehicle mandates, she's been lying. And on everything having to do with her tax policy, tax on tips in particular, Kamala just continues to flip-flop. She is not just changing her position. She's taking the exact opposite side. And as a result, I think the American public is beginning to see what the Democrat voters saw in the 2020 campaign, which is Kamala Harris is an untrustworthy liar that isn't particularly likable. And I thought even with softball question after softball question from Dana Bash, that Kamala Harris managed to put herself in worse positions every single time, again, even without aggressive questioning. Gambling markets agree with me. Numbers have been moving against Kamala Harris since the interview went live. I watched it as I was watching Colorado, North Dakota State. I thought in particular on fracking, Kamala was a disaster. I thought in inflation, she's a real mess. Look, here's the reality. Kamala bragged about bringing down inflation. But when she came into office in January of 2021, inflation was 1.4%. It then went all the way to 9.1% on her watch. It's still nearly 3%. So when she says we solved things, she's bragging about something that is actually not true at all, meaning she's actually doubled inflation since Donald Trump came into office. And this is a good, since she came into office and Donald Trump left office. And I think this is an important part. The cost of goods has gone up by more than 20% during the Kamala Biden partnership. And look, if you're trying to lose weight, and a lot of people are always trying to lose weight, you don't lose weight by limiting how much weight you put on, by which I mean this. If you put on 20 pounds 2 years ago, and you put on 15 pounds last year, and you put on 10 pounds this year, you are decreasing the rate of weight increase, but you're still having to deal with, I think that's a 45-pound weight increase over 3 years. The price increases are not getting dialed back. When you recognize how much prices have gone up, it is a function of a new reality, because that's why inflation is so pernicious. And unfortunately, inflation has grown at a faster rate by and large than most American worker wages have, which means that the things that you are buying now cost you more than they cost you when Trump was in office. And for Kamala to try to argue that Bidenomics has worked and to say, well, when we came into office, we were in the middle of a pandemic, everything was good. They were set for an incredible rebound because COVID was over by January of 2021 for anybody with a functional brain. And for many of us, like my kids were back in school in August of 2020, my life didn't really change that much. By May or June of 2020, I was back 100% to normalcy. And so was anybody else who had a functional brain. And so Kamala, I thought, fell all over herself and was not good. But she was better than Tim Walz, who I think is the dumbest person to ever be nominated for vice president in any of our lives, and maybe the dumbest vice presidential nominee of all time. He barely had to answer any questions at all, but he was asked about why he lied about his DUI and why he lied about carrying weapons of war in war. And he's had a month to think up an answer, and all he said is, my grammar isn't always correct. What an excuse for lying. My grammar isn't always correct. This is a guy who wants to brag about being a school teacher, and he's still continuing to try to hide from responsibility. He didn't answer at all the question of why he lied in 2006 about the 1995 DUI that he got. Walz is an inveterate liar. It's all he does. Kamala is not particularly smart, but she's basically deciding, I'll do whatever I have to win the state of Pennsylvania, which is likely going to decide the outcome of this election. Okay. I want to play for all of you as we finish up this show and head into the Labor Day weekend, and hopefully everybody has a fabulous job watching college football. I know I can't wait. I wanted to play for you Brittany Mahomes. Now, Brittany Mahomes has been under fire recently because people evidently are going into her Instagram account and paying attention to what posts she likes. I don't even know how to do this. I'm not the most sophisticated person out there, certainly in any respect, when it comes to social media. I run my Twitter account. I don't run my Instagram account. I don't run my TikTok account. I certainly don't run any of the OutKick accounts on any of these platforms. The only thing that I am sending messages from is my Twitter account. So if you see it on Twitter, it's from me. Otherwise, we're just promoting through the staff things that I do because I want to get it in front of the largest possible audience, which is smart. That's what OutKick should be doing. But I don't even know how to check and see what people like. Here is Brittany Mahomes on a recent interview saying that one thing Patrick has taught her is you got to pay less attention to what people say on social media. I think it's great advice. Listen, Patrick Mahomes' wife, Brittany, on how she responds to negativity.
Yeah, I think we kind of got thrown into the fire together, and I think that's what's helped us, do so well in the life that we are, is that we did it all together. And he is a lot better at it than I am, maybe because his dad played professional sports. So I think he was around it and he understood it a lot more than I did. So having him to help me get through it has helped a lot because he's very good at, managing those things and blocking people out and doing all that type of stuff. So having him beside me, kind of guiding me and coaching me through it has helped a ton. And I think that's kind of how we've gotten to where we're at now.
What's been like a piece of advice that's helped you manage all of it?
I think the main thing that, he always told me is stop caring about what people think, especially the people that don't even know you. And so I think social media used to get to me a lot, and now it's just honestly, I don't give a F-U-C-K what people have to say about me anymore. And I think he's helped me get to that point to where, I'm strong in who I am. I'm confident in who I am. I'm confident in mine and his relationship, and I'm confident in our life. So why does, what other people say have to matter at all?
Boom. I think it's great advice. Kids, grandkids, if you have young people in particular, but I think it's great advice for people of all ages in a social media era where people are constantly reacting to what you say or do. And look, I'm in the public eye. I've gotten used to it over the last 20 years. But I think in social media, a lot of people out there are not used to this, right? You've got a TikTok account or an Instagram account, and if it goes viral in any stretch of the imagination, suddenly you get comments from people you don't know. And some of those comments are likely to be, frankly, not very nice. And so one advice is just don't read the comments. Say what you say, own it, and don't worry about it. Another piece of advice, and I say this to my own kids, I think it's really important. And this would be my advice to all of you as we roll into Labor Day weekend. Don't take criticism from people you wouldn't ask for advice. There should be people in your life that know you, that you will ask their opinion on an issue. And they can tell you whatever they think. It doesn't mean you have to take it. I've talked about this before in my own life. I've been married for 20 years. One of the things my wife had to get used to was I come and ask her advice on things all the time. She is super smart, Vanderbilt lawyer. I'm fortunate to have her. Glad that we have been together. Incredibly thankful for the 3 boys that we have and the life that we have built. All that's true. But I ask for her advice all the time. And for a long time in our relationship, I would ask her advice, and sometimes I would do the opposite of the advice that she gave. And I didn't really think about it because I would ask, a decent number of people that are close friends or family for advice at times. And the reason I ask for advice is for intelligent people, I just want to make sure I'm not missing something, right? What is out there that I'm not smart enough to have seen? What am I missing? And so I'll ask intelligent people in my life whose advice that I trust, hey, what do you think about this issue? And sometimes I don't take their advice because I've already considered the perspective that they bring. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I've analyzed that. And eventually I had to sit down with my wife. She's like, this is like the 5th time you've asked me for advice on something and not done it. And I said, this is on me. I'm not asking you to tell me what to do. I'm asking you what I think because I value your opinion and I want to put it into my calculus and make sure that I'm not missing anything when I think through an issue and make a decision. Doesn't mean I'm going to make the right decision. Nobody does. But if you can string together a series of pretty good decisions one day after another, then eventually you're going to end up in a pretty good spot, right? You make perfect decisions, you're going to end up Warren Buffett, basically. And I'm sure Warren Buffett would say, hey, I haven't been perfect either, but he's made a series of incredibly good decisions. If you can just stack together a series of pretty good days, then you're going to end up in a very successful position. By the way, this is good advice for like going to your high school reunions. A lot of times the people that are most successful at 25 aren't the same people that are most successful at 45 or 55 or 65. Whatever age you are, you can start stringing together better decisions to build a better version of yourself. I'm far from perfect. I screw up things all the time. But one thing that I think is very important is you have to not let people who don't have your best circumstances in mind influence the choices that you make. This is why I come back to, don't take criticism from anyone you wouldn't ask for advice. Best advice I can give you on social media. Don't take criticism from anyone you wouldn't ask for advice. Criticism from people you trust can be very valuable. Criticism from people who don't like you or don't have your best interests at heart, it actually leads to a worse place and a worse result for you if you pay attention and allow them to influence you. Words of wisdom, that was my TED Talk for the day. I am Clay Travis. Enjoy college football games. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. I will be back with all of you on Tuesday. Until then, have spectacular Labor Day weekends with all your friends and family. If you want to know what I think about college football, I'll probably be tweeting about college football games from my Clay Travis account tomorrow and throughout the weekend. I'll see you guys on Tuesday.